Do you have remote control, Eleanor?
Yes, it's quite visible. You can go ahead.
Cool.
Sorry, hang on, Mash. Can we go back? It's not letting me, it's going. Okay, thanks. So we're running a session today on carbon pricing. So we've already had an introduction about me, Eleanor, and my partner, Alexandra. But just to redo, I'm very happy to be presenting this workshop today. I was able to take part in the Climate Science Olympiad finals this week, and the Climate Science Olympiad semi-finals a month and a half ago, and both of these competitions I centered around carbon pricing, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so carbon pricing, what is it? So carbon pricing is when you put a price on carbon emissions. So far, it's only been used in the context of company emissions, but there are projects to extend it to the general population. The price of the carbon is calculated by looking at the societal harm that the carbon has. The cost of the carbon is an estimate in dollars or whatever currency that country uses of the economic damages that result from adding 1 additional ton of greenhouse gas into the atmosphere. It puts the effects of carbon into economic terms to help policymakers and other decision makers understand the economic impacts of decisions that would decrease or increase emissions. How is it calculated? Economists come together and estimate the harm of a large quantity of carbon emissions. They look at how much it will increase the Earth's temperature, its effect on the Earth's environment, and also the effect on the health of animals and humans. It is then divided into small quantities, and the amount of money needed to recapture that carbon or completely mitigate its impacts becomes the price of 1 ton of carbon. Every year, policymakers commonly come together to calculate the societal cost of carbon and then use it for future policies. Okay.
Sorry, there's a slide you're trying to get
slide
to?
on ETS.
Oh, okay. Let me get to it because I think you're having trouble in controlling the screen.
Okay, ETS. So what is an emission trading scheme? And an emission trading scheme is a tool that puts a quantity and a price of emissions. It's a currency used to trade emission units, and it's issued by the government like a voucher that allows the holder to make 1 ton of greenhouse gases. It's tradable on the market and is similar to stocks or bonds of other companies. The government decides which entities, typically companies in each sector, are liable for their emissions. In some cases, entities are liable for emissions they don't really cause. So, for example, fossil fuel producers. But they are responsible for the use of emissions generated when others use their product. What is a carbon tax? Under a carbon tax, the government sets a price that emitters must pay for each ton of greenhouse gas they emit. Businesses and consumers will take steps such as switching fuels or adapting to new technologies to reduce their emissions to avoid paying tax. A carbon tax is a lump fee imposed on businesses. It works in the same way a pollution tax would. The tax is a set fee and is the same for everyone, every company in your country, or if it's imposed on a global scale for every country. The burning of these fuels produces greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide and methane, which heat up the atmosphere and cause global warming. A carbon tax is seen as reducing emissions by making it more expensive to use carbon-based fuels, therefore giving companies a reason to become more energy efficient so as to save money. A carbon tax would also increase the costs of gasoline and electricity, therefore giving consumers a reason to switch to clean or renewable energy. How does carbon pricing relate to the SDG 15 goal of life on land? Well, firstly, it helps prevent deforestation and carbon-intensive activities by giving incentives to stop carbon-intensive activities. And it also helps renew forests and help carbon offsetting, because the revenue from the carbon pricing can be used to invest in green technologies or green startups.
So what does carbon tax mean for our future? It is an effective solution and incentivizes companies to reduce their emissions. It practically ensures green innovation, positive progress, and emission reductions, as the industry of green technology needs to develop in order to accommodate for companies' new needs to reduce their emissions. Countries are considering nationwide carbon policies every year, and progress is being made. There are currently 27 countries with a carbon tax implemented. These include Argentina, Chile, China, Colombia, Denmark, Norway, Singapore, Sweden, and more. Carbon tax is definitely going to be a large part of our climate solution, and we work to fulfill the SDGs. So what does a carbon pricing policy look like in practice? Canada is a great example of an existing carbon pricing policy. The program is one of the most ambitious ones in the world, where a nationwide tax on oil, coal, and gas have been enforced. The money from this program will be given back to the people through tax bills, which is a great way to offset the effects of price rises on households. Some industries face international competition, so this tax could detrimentally affect their trade. Therefore, some key industries, i.e. steel and chemicals, are exempt from this tax. Instead, an ETS system is used for these industries, resulting in them having to pay for emissions over the cap or buying carbon credits that are given to the cleanest companies. Provinces can even opt out of this policy by creating their own. For example, British Columbia chose to have its own higher carbon tax, and Quebec now has an ETS system. So now we're going to have a quick quiz, and let me just stop sharing. I'm going to share the link to this quiz in the chat, and it's about 5 questions. So sorry, give me a second. So you'll have about—
quite short. It's 3 of them are multiple choice, 2 of them are type-in questions.
So you'll have about 5 minutes to do this.
And I'll then share the results and any common misconceptions after that. And we'll also go through each questions and explaining why our answer was wrong or why it was confusing or any questions related to it. We've got quite a few responses, so if you're finishing up, you still have time. I can see two people are currently filling out the form. So if that's you, you can skip some of the writing questions because we'll be going through them soon now. Okay, we're gonna start going through them now.
Okay, share my screen again. 2 seconds. Okay, cool.
Sorry about that. Okay, so for question 1, there was one answer which 70% of people took, but there were some other answers. So would anyone like to share why they chose their answer before we go on to which one was the correct answer? You can do that by putting your hand up. If not, we'll go directly.
Oh, sorry. How do I change that?
Okay, if not, I'm just going to go through it. So the right answer was calculating the harm of a ton of carbon, because what policymakers do is they look at the societal harm of a ton of carbon. There were quite a few people who said the amount of pollution created by a company. And they don't actually look at the amount of pollution, they look at the amount of carbon because it's a carbon tax. Or carbon pricing. So methane or other types of pollution isn't really included in carbon pricing. Some people said using the amount of species that are going extinct, and that's kind of unrelated because we're looking at the direct harm of carbon on the atmosphere. So the thing that policymakers and companies would have to look at would be the amount of carbon produced. Next question. Okay, give a problem with a carbon tax. So we had a quite a range of responses here. A lot of people said that it unfairly disadvantages people who are have a low income, or it's not affordable for poor people, which is one of the main issues with the carbon tax and why it's not been successful in being implemented so far. In the past, it's been implemented policymakers have tried to implement it in France, but it ultimately failed because it unfairly disadvantaged people who are less well off. We also had some responses saying the cost of administrating the tax may be quite expensive, which reduces its efficiency, which is also a good point. Next question, Alexandra. So is an ETS scheme currently running in Norway? And the answer is yes. So Norway is part of the European emissions trading scheme, but it also has a carbon tax, which has been running since 1991. Norway is one of the leading countries when it comes to climate-friendly policies, and it's at the forefront of kind of financial and economic climate policies. Next question. What is a positive of ETS? So again, quite a range of responses, but one of the most common response was that it gives incentives to the companies to reduce their carbon emissions. So that's true of both carbon taxes or emission trading schemes. The difference between emission trading schemes and carbon tax is that the price point of an emission trading scheme can get much higher because you have different companies kind of bidding for kind of one unit of ETS, and the supply does not meet the demand, which means the price can get much higher. Next question, Alexandra. Okay, so on average, people said that it was China, Norway, Brazil, and then Bhutan, or China, Norway, China, Brazil, Norway, Bhutan, or China, Norway, Bhutan. So I guess there was an uncertainty over whether Norway or Brazil. Surprisingly, actually, Norway has a higher carbon emission per capita. Per capita, if you didn't know, means per person. And that's mainly because Norway is a developed country, whereas Brazil could be considered as a developing country, so people use less resources, they take part in less kind of carbon intensive activities such as flying, so per person the carbon footprint of Norway is higher than Brazil, which doesn't mean that Norway isn't taking a lot of action to reduce that, but it's generally a tendency. And then China, because it has kind of coal, it has other kind of mining facilities, it has a lot of factories, it has one of the highest carbon emissions. And then Bhutan, I'm not sure if Bhutan is actually the only carbon neutral country. It has many carbon sinks because a third of its land is made up of forests. So that was it for the quiz. And I'll be posting in the chat who the winner was once I calculate all the scores up.
Okay, so whilst Eleanor does that, we're going to move on to some key terms. Before we do this, actually, because our next thing is a proposal writing breakout room thing, sorry. So if you have any specific questions about carbon tax or ETS that you don't currently understand, which would be essential for the next part of our workshop, please put any questions in the chat or unmute yourself if you want.
Also, no pressure, but if anyone would like to turn their cameras on, just to make it kind of feel more lively, that would be very welcomed.
Okay, whilst we wait for any questions, I'm just going to quickly stop sharing and then reshare because I think I did. I need to redo the PowerPoint because I think I clicked something weird.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, the presentation.
Reshare my screen now, sorry. Okay, this is where we got to. Okay, so Maria says she's going to switch devices, so we're just going to wait for her.
In the meantime, actually, we're going to put you into breakout rooms where you can discuss any questions you had so that you can come back and put some questions in the chat box. The reason we're doing that is because we're going to get you to write a proposal for your own carbon tax system. And it'd be really useful to get kind of some common misconceptions out of the way.
Okay, great. I'm going to stop sharing and put everybody into, oh, thank you for putting your cameras on. I'm going to put everybody into breakout rooms now, and think it'd be good to have 5 per room. So I'm just going to create a room. Sorry, I have never done this before. Okay, so you should get an invitation now, and you might be unlucky as to get one of us in your breakout room as well. So if you have any questions, you can directly ask us. So I'm going to create those now. You should be getting some invitations now. Great, I can see it's working. Okay, I think everybody's back now, so we're just going to continue. Okay.
So actually before that, I was flicking through some of the breakout rooms, and we looked at the different pros and cons and ways to fix the cons of carbon pricing in ETS. So I just thought I'd share that. So a very common con with an ETS is that it's very expensive. So it causes an inflation in the price of goods, because you now have companies have to adjust for that added price, added cost of the carbon tax. And one person in my group suggested putting a cap on the amount of carbon, putting a cap on how much companies can raise their prices. So the prices stay the same for the consumers, but the companies have to pay for the carbon tax using their profits. So it means that it doesn't become more expensive for consumers, but companies still have to pay for it. Another kind of suggested approach would be, instead of having an ETS system, would be having discounts or reducing VAT, so that's value added tax, on products which are deemed green or have low carbon emissions. And consumers would be incentivized to choose those because they would be cheaper.
Great. Okay, Eleanor, do you want to go through the key terms now?
These are just some key terms which you might want to use, might want to include in your proposal. So CO2T is a carbon dioxide ton. So it's the price of a ton of carbon dioxide. Revenue of a company is the total amount of money it makes during a year. It's not to be confused with profit. With profit, I'm assuming that most people know that, but it's after all its costs of paying employees, its goods, it's like primary materials is what's left. Revenue is just the total amount of money it makes. Scope is, so the scope, you would use that to describe the scope of a carbon tax, so who it influences. So you might want to think, so low-income people, low-income households, high-income households, companies, etc. Profit margin, I'll come to that in a bit, but profit margins is on a product, how much profit a company makes on a given product. So companies in agriculture tend to have, companies who produce agricultural goods tend to have a smaller profit margin than companies, say, who produce cars or electronics. Yeah, that's just something to keep in mind.
Okay, great. So we're just going to go through quickly how this is just a really base way of wording proposal. You can basically do it however you like, but this is just a structured way of doing it to get across a point. So first you say your point. So what are you trying to say? Then you would say why. So why does this point even happen? What's the cause of this point? Then you would give an example or say how. So what is the overall impact of this point? Then you would explain why it's important. So, and what's its impact? So what is it actually doing? And then you have to give weight to the point so you can give it, so you can show why is it more or less important than another point, to ensure that people know where it is on a scale of 1 to 10. Is it 1? Is it super not important? 10, like really impactful? And then you can add a comparison. So you can compare how this point compares to another. So say you were arguing for one point against another, you would say, oh, this is why this is better than this. And you would emphasize using the things you've said before to show that it's better by comparing. So an example, let's just try an example and argue why ETS could be worse than carbon tax. So this is objective. Obviously, there are many different factors to this. So let's just say it is. So you could say ETS disproportionately disadvantages businesses with smaller profit margins. That's the point. Then you say ETS becomes very expensive to buy because the system is made so that supply does not meet demand. So that's why. Why is this happening? And then you can say businesses with small profit margins cannot buy enough permits, or the price is too high, which makes it financially unviable. This is the example and the impact. And then you can say this is particularly harmful as sectors that have very small profit margins tend to be necessities, i.e. healthcare. And then you can have your comparison. So you're arguing for carbon tax. So you can say, however, Carbon tax is a simple system that is consistent throughout the year and can be easily tailored to different sectors to prevent necessities from going out of business. So this is a way you can just word your proposals. It might be helpful for essays, debating, anything. It's quite a base way of structuring things. So now we're going to put you into breakout rooms or 4 or 5. So essentially the same breakout rooms you were in before. And we'll give you about 15 minutes or more if needed to create your own proposal. So you can base it on carbon tax or ETS, or you can create a whole new system. We don't really mind. So we will read them all. So you will write them.
Sorry, just before you say that, we'll be sending a Google Docs for each kind of breakout room. So pay attention to which breakout room you're put in, because you'll be then like editing that document.
And if you don't catch the Google Doc, we're just going to hop into your breakout room and give you the link via the chat. So just aim to write 100 to 150 words, and you can choose to implement it on a global scale, hypothetically, or in a country. And you can do like maybe a small area, like a city, and feel free to like Google, use references, that's fine. So I'm going to stop sharing now and put you into breakout rooms. And once you're in your breakout rooms, me and Eleanor will send out links to Google Docs where you can edit and add your own proposals. Eleanor, I'm going to send a link for breakout room 2 now.
All right, so Tanisha, just a short update for you. Miss Martin has gave you the co-host role. You can now, make any one of us co-host or create the breakout room. All right.
So did Pascal, did Alexandra or Eleonore, did they say anything about getting everyone back into the plenary session? Because we should be starting the
Um,
Q&A. Yeah.
okay, so while we were talking probably in the last week, I ensured them there might be some questions and they are free to answer it. So I hope there aren't any problem. Likewise, if there's any question concerning their presentation or any relevant thing they would like to know, we might encourage people to do this thing. So far we didn't have any question.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So let's give like 5 more minutes for the like 4
All right.
more
No
minutes, and then after
problem.
that we'll
I
call
hope that
everyone
they
back.
both are working in different breakout rooms, and when they feel that everyone is finished, they will get everyone back to the main room here. Yes, and the people who joined just like I see Nevia, could you please assign her
Yeah.
to a breakout room?
Yeah. Oh, okay, it's already done. Um,
And I think that you are concerned about digital badge. So for this thing, I might contact badge our coordinator.
oh yeah.
I have an
I think it's
access.
fine. It's
He is
just it's mostly
okay.
fine. The only thing is that like I've on the registration responses spreadsheet, I'm just highlighting all the participants that I can remember from memory who have attended their names. So it's not very accurate that way, but I don't think we should
Yes.
be emailing them to everyone. 289 is a big number. Let's just do one thing. In the main session, we'll say if you haven't received your badge by 2 weeks, let's say, please contact, I guess I'll send my email.
Okay.
I can
And also
do that.
me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Also
fine.
mine.
Yeah, that way it's much easier.
And another point, likewise, did Mr. Chris attend the session? Likewise, the dolphin pool session.
Yeah,
I
he
hope
did from
yes.
the
Okay, okay,
from
okay.
finish.
He was just saying me quite an hour ago that there might be some difficulties from his end, and he might be like
Yep.
thrown
Sorry, I'm
off. But
ending
I
it now.
said, okay, no problem, no problem. I am. We are very happy that you finally did it, and
Yeah.
he was really
All right. So I
everything
see Alexandra is here.
Yes, well,
All right. So we'll have 5 minutes of Q&A session, and then yeah, let's just go ahead with that.
Great. Just gonna wait for people to come back now.
So looking through all breakout rooms contributed quite a bit. Alexandra, would you like to go through kind of what you thought were the best points and what we need a little more?
Yeah, so I think everybody did quite well. There's quite a lot of writing everywhere. I haven't managed to read through any of it yet, but I'm just going to quickly scan that now.
So breakout room 3 said something about using the revenue generated from the carbon tax using that revenue and redistributing it to people from low-income households, or using it to kind of offset carbon emissions, which I think, yeah.
Great. I think for breakout room 2, they clearly stated their objectives, which is great. So they said, for our proposal, we believe that in order to improve the carbon tax, it should be held to the same standards as the emissions trading scheme, and with new regulations, which I completely agree with. I feel like ETS gets a bit more, I don't know, light on it and taken more seriously than carbon tax, because ETS has more effectiveness. But I think, yeah, I agree, carbon tax should become more implemented. Okay, I think now we're supposed to have a Q&A, so if anybody has any questions, direct them to us through the chat, or just say it out loud if you want.
Or you can, if you don't want to send it to everyone, you can just directly send it to us. That's also fine.
So someone has asked me, how can we regulate a carbon tax? So in order to do this, you can have things similar to accounting firms. So accounting firms ensure that companies aren't lying about their income and giving the right amount of income tax to the government. So you have a similar system, just with carbon tax. And this is a system that is theoretical. I'm not sure if many countries have it, but it's quite a common way of dealing with regulating basically anything. There are probably other ways of doing it, but I'm not sure if I know them. Eleanor, if you do, please feel free to expand.
I think you've covered it, but yeah, accounting firms, generally from income tax. And then obviously you can have government checks on companies or on individuals to make sure they're not kind of distorting their actual carbon footprint. Then you can impose fines if people lie about it, but generally that happens in a minority of cases.
Also, I've got a message asking who was the winner of the quiz. So Eleanor, if you could share that.
Oh yeah, 1 second, I just need to.
Whilst we wait for any questions, I just want to add breakout room 4 is making some great points about how the money can be used to advanced industries.
Alexandra, we have a question. How can a carbon tax help us to switch to sustainable energies? From Heman.
So would you like me to answer that, or do you want to do it?
I'm just calculating the scores.
Okay, so what was the question again? Sorry, sustainable energies.
It's fine, I'll answer. So a carbon tax, how can it help us switch to sustainable energies? Well, the revenue we generate from a carbon tax, we can then use to invest in green startups or like green technologies through government grants or government funds over the country. So it disadvantages companies which use a lot of carbon, which means companies that don't use that much carbon are advantaged, and they get a bigger market share overall.
I've got a question. So sorry, I've gotten a question. So someone has asked, can we have carbon tax for companies only? So no, I mean, yes, you can. You can have it for individuals. You can have it for like organizations, but it's mainly just for companies, because if you tax the individual, that's slightly unfair because you can't really expect results whilst you are taxing someone for pollution they just weren't completely responsible for. And you can't expect industrial decarbonization to be carried by the individual. So by taxing the companies, you're directly addressing the problem. Whereas by taxing, say, individuals, you're putting additional financial pressure on vulnerable households, and it's not very realistic, and it will result in a lot of public opposition. So I've got another question. How does collection of tax impact in minimizing the outflow of carbon? So sorry, let me just reread this. So by having a tax and forcing companies to pay you for their emissions, a new cost will be added to their revenue. So they will want to reduce their emissions in order to avoid paying this tax, because before they haven't bothered because it wasn't a necessity. But now it's financially unviable to avoid reducing their emissions because of the carbon tax. Companies will now turn to green technology and green innovation and do their own research to carry out experiments to work out what could reduce their emissions in order to avoid paying large amounts of tax so they can maintain their profits. Oh, I've got another question. Okay. Is an ETS running? Yeah, ETSs are running in a lot of different places, including the EU. I think some places of China, they have some pilot cities where they're testing out what an ETS is like. I think there's some in Australia, Canada, definitely. It's quite common, and it's become even more common by the year as countries are gradually getting into the flow of introducing carbon pricing policies.
Okay, I've got a winner. But before that, there's just a quick form where you just write your name and any feedback you have. And I think at the end it should announce, once you've answered all the questions, it should announce who the winner was. But I'll also repeat it in. So it's currently UTC time 6:03. So I'll announce it at 6:06. Sorry, I've realized I just sent the wrong link. I'll just send it again.
While she does that, any more questions? So as I think we're going slightly over time, oh wait, no question. Okay, what do you think is better, carbon tax or ETS? Well, I would say ETS, but only marginally. It depends what you're taxing, what you're trying to achieve, because carbon tax has more like more certain cost certainty, so you know that you're going to get money every year. But with ETS, the prices of the ETSs are quite volatile, so you could result in having really low tax income. Well, yeah, tax from the policy, or you can have really high depending on what the market trends are. So it's not very reliable if you're trying to constantly invest in different technologies constantly. So if you want to have constant money and be sure that you're going to get tax money from different companies, then it's better to do carbon tax. But if you are trying more to just reduce emissions and you can afford not to have constant cash flow every year, then ETS is better. Also, ETS has already been implemented in a lot of places. So if you want to continue making carbon policies and make it global, it would be better to have ETS because you can just latch onto already existing frameworks. Okay, so I think we're going slightly over time. So Eleanor, just announce the quiz winners so we can release everybody from this prison. I'm just kidding. Okay. I think we're 6 minutes over time. I hope that's not detrimental for anybody. Right, I think Eleanor's having Wi-Fi problems. We're just going to wait a minute or so. If she doesn't come back, then we're going to have to end the workshop, and I'm sure that we can email around who the winner was. Okay, I think she's gone. Sorry, I don't have the quiz results. So I think we can, if possible, we can email them out after this workshop once she gets her Wi-Fi back. So thank you everybody for coming. That's the end of our workshop. Question, hi.
Hello. My last question, that is it our last workshop or will we have any ahead?
I'm not entirely sure. Can one of the other hosts take this question possibly?
Oh,
yeah,
yes,
sure.
sure. This is going to be our last workshop, and by this workshop, we will be finishing our all activities related to GWOA October round. So thank you everyone for joining us and staying for the last week. And I hope that you enjoyed every workshop, every forum discussion and sandbox session, and also this presentation. And thank you very much, Eleonore and Alexandra, for drawing a unique conclusion to this GWOA October round. I hope there might be some difficulties during the whole week, any tech difficulty or any inconvenience that you feel. We are very sorry for it. But again, I would like to give a huge shout out to all the people of our team and also all the presenters. Yeah. I
Yeah, I
hope.
would like to thank you also for this workshops. I have
Thank you
emailed
very much.
Nisha Sextina about the certificate sync, and me and my fellow friends are also interested that will the participants get participation certificates or it's not included in the program?
Yeah, so we'll be emailing participation badges within, like, digital badges within a week or so. And this is one more thing. So we'll be sending them out maximum
So,
within 2 weeks.
Sorry.
However,
So
if
for
you
the
don't,
So for the winner, I don't actually have the name, but I have the initials, which were IK of the person. So whoever that was, well done. You.
yes, so once again, thank you so much to our presenters, Alexandra and Eleonore, for that amazing workshop. And I hope that you all enjoyed this session. And with that, this ends the Global League of Action October round for SDG 15 Life on Land. It has been amazing having you all joining all of our sessions throughout the week. And as I said, regarding the participation badges, they'll be sent out maximum by 2 weeks. However, if you do not receive them by then please do not hesitate to email me at tsexina@immuneimpact.org, which is the email I'm sending in the chat. And you should be receiving them within 2 weeks, but if not, you can just email me, which is totally fine. And with that, once again, thank you so much all for attending our sessions, and we hope to see you again in our future rounds of Global League of Actions and other Immune Impact events.
Yes, and I also sent out a Google Drive that we have created just for you, which contains a short info of every kind of event what we from MUN Impact arranged from time to time. And you might not find a lengthy information there, but we have put down some emails of the respective person who are in charge of the programs. So if you have any concern, then you can email them, and you can also visit our website. And there you can find updates for the upcoming GWOA. So for now, we have been planning to have another GWOA that will be basically starting from first week of December. So you will find, every information about a speaker, event, workshop, how you can join on our website. So stay in touch, and you can also, add yourself to our emailing list so that if there is any new thing coming up, you can be, informed of that. And yeah, thank you very much, everybody, again. So you are now free to leave. Hope to see you again in another event on another day with excitement and enthusiasm all. And if you have any feedback for the whole thing, like how we can make the workshop more qualitative, or any kind of suggestion, then you can put down it on chat, or just unmute yourself and say how satisfied you are. Otherwise, you are free to leave. Goodbye, everyone. And yes, all the
Thanks for your
recordings of
efforts.
our,
Have a great day.
all
Goodbye.
right,
Thank you.
goodbye, stay safe. And you know what I was saying, all the recordings of the GWOA sessions, you will find them on our YouTube page, that is MN Impact. So if you just search MN Impact on YouTube, and you can find a folder there that is GWOA October round SDG 15. And you can also find the other events from our last E3 summit, or from our last GWOA that was basically in April, and also the other things that we basically do from MN Impact. That's it. And also follow us on different social media. We have also Facebook account, Instagram account. There you can also find enough information about every event, how you can get involved. That's it. Thank you, everyone who are greeting us. I hope, Tanisha, you can stop recording now. Yes.